Say hello to President Kamala Harris, America. President Joe Biden. Silly me. Or maybe President Trump, somehow, still. But it doesn't bloody look like it. It looked like Trump was winning, but then those postal votes stole the day, and so now we get into court shenanigans over fraud allegations. The only chance for Trump now is if he holds on to all his leading states, but then also takes the lead from Biden in Nevada. This is very, very unlikely, though as it is, even with Biden winning against Trump, in the end it's only going to be by a few electoral college votes overall. Either way, there's almost certainly going to be violence. If Trump had won, and especially in a scenario that the British Conservative commentator Douglas Murray has been fearing for a while, if he somehow still manages to win and snatches victory from the jaws of defeat, then you have Antifa and BLM and the licorice all sorts of the left burning down everything in sight. As it is, if there are no unthinkable shenanigans favourable to Trump, then with the mail-in ballots being so readily perceivable as fraudulent, and with Trump's base primed to think of them as such, you will get violence from the right side of the spectrum. Perhaps militia types, or perhaps some QAnon loner will try and shoot Democrats or shoot up a vote counting facility. Then all sorts of horrible occurrences roll on from there. The YouTube commentator Tim Pool has been talking up civil war for the entire year, and if there's a time for it to happen, it's when things come down to the wire between a supposed KKK fascist and the supposed neoliberal stooge of the interdimensional vampire paedophile elite. If we pass through this gate unscathed, then maybe America has a small chance to cool off. I fucking doubt that, though. So it's likely a Biden win, and it's likely Trump's handling of COVID that gave up the ground, because beforehand the economy was great, with the longest period of positive growth in US history, and great employment numbers for black people, which may explain why he's done so well with blacks so far. Hispanics too. Surely the BLM stuff and the attacks on law and order hurt Biden, but not enough, and the COVID stuff sure hurt Trump. I may or may not do a retrospective on Trump when this all comes to a close. I supported him at the start, but my support for him waxed and waned over time. I liked candidate Trump the best. Once you get past the boorish and erratic personality, the guy was proposing policies I liked. Except for the tariff trade war stuff, though I've evolved on that over time. I thought that would be incredibly destructive to the economy, but it turned out that even though the tariffs did have the negative effect expected in terms of raising costs for farmers, which then needed extra subsidies, it was overall traded off against the stimulus provided by tax cuts and deregulation, and the overall magnitude of the tariffs was not as high as expected either. You can't hand all the credit to the Obama administration, since it would be one thing for Trump to not drop the ball, but to continue the uptick into a period unsurpassed in American history. That really says something. I'd also need to see whether the tariffs actually brought jobs back from abroad, as claimed, but for that I'd need to look into the data some more in an actual retrospective. I also thought he'd cornered himself on the wall when it seemed there were so many stipulations on funding it, and he couldn't quite get the funding during the government shutdown, and he was only able to procure a very small amount. But since then, construction has been steaming ahead. The wall is being built. And I think some of that has to be locked in during Biden. I think on COVID I'd need to look into it more to come to a proper conclusion. But preliminarily I think Trump deserves some blame for how he handled it in total, even if he got certain things right. The evidence for the effects of lockdowns is still strong, I think. It's complicated by cases like Sweden and Japan, but if we look at these things in batches, all the Nordic countries have done better than West Europe and America, and all the Asian countries after China have done better regardless of differences in lockdown policies, so something else was going on. Certainly lockdowns must prevent spread, but there may be geographic, behavioural and ethnic factors that can have even larger effects. It's always about timing. Lockdowns help you crush the spread and help space out how the health service deals with it, but they also require a lot of government spending to avoid the economy tanking. You need to open back up again at some point. In the UK we always knew we were getting a second lockdown because of the second wave, but I think this is going to be the last lockdown ordinary people will tolerate. But we're doing it because the numbers are spiking again. The numbers aren't looking good in America either, so what trade-off do you make? It's difficult. We'll see if Biden can do better on at least that front, but considering that leftist radicals got special exemption from lockdown in practice, I do wonder. Will Biden be another frog-boiling Obama type? he's got a lot more far leftist pressure on him than Obama did, for one thing. It is the case that the Dems have not done too great in the Senate and House, however, so like Obama, he may have to resort to a lot of executive orders. Some think that Trump has been worse for what we're calling wokeism now, but I don't think that's true. He just made them angrier and they lashed out more. But they've been changing things progressively in their direction since the 2010s got going. It didn't all begin in 2016 as a response to Trump. There could be fewer riots under Biden perhaps, but there's going to be more legislation that favours the woke crowd. Since while Biden is an economic centrist, the thing about intersectional ideology is that the centre-left and the radical left have pretty much the same level of investment in it. On the UK relevant front, a Biden victory isn't great for Brexit. Trump would have given us a hearing on a trade deal, but I'm sure Biden wants the EU to win this struggle. Dark times ahead, even if Trump somehow reverses this. Still dark times, because it means the US is going to explode into ridiculous levels of violence.